Faith Church, and devotions today. We're beginning First Kings. So yesterday you would have watched the video, just kind of an overview of First Kings. And so today, as we look at this, the first two chapters of First Kings, it's going to be kind of more of I was going to say a history lesson, like just I'm going to go through and give the big picture of the story. We have David handing over the throne to Solomon, and some of the events in there, and then we'll just look at just a couple verses in terms of application for the words that David gave Solomon, the kind of the charge he gave him, and we'll look at that at the end. So in these first two chapters here, we have David. He's a sick man, and so we know that his reign is coming to an end, and who's going to be the next king? Well, we know that God had said it would be Solomon. But what happens is David's oldest living son, Adonijah, sees the opportunity for the throne, and he decides he's going to try and take it. So he enlists Joab, the general of David's army, as well as Abiathar, the priest, and basically kind of says like, hey, the time has come, and the opportunity to take the throne here, and for me to become the next king after David. And so they set up this plan, and they have a big feast, and they have the priest there, they have the general there, which to the people that would be symbolized the passing on of the throne to the next king. And so they set all this up themselves, and David doesn't know about it. Well, Nathan the prophet, who we remember he's the one who came to David back when David sinned against Bathsheba and other times, but has always been a prophet and advisor to David for his whole life, prophet of God. Nathan finds out about it, and so he goes to Bathsheba and says, Bathsheba, have you heard? Adonijah's taking the throne. Your son Solomon was supposed to get it. And so Bathsheba goes to David and says, David, this is going on, and doesn't know how he'll respond. But David responds and says, as the Lord lives, as I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, saying, Solomon, your son, shall reign after me, and he will sit in my throne in my place. And so we have David saying, no, Bathsheba, you're right. Solomon is to be king. This is what God has said. And so King David comes to the plan. He calls the other high priest, Zadok, and calls him as well as Nathan. And he says, take my donkey, my mule, the king's mule, and put Solomon on it and parade him through the streets and announce that, go up to where the tabernacle is and anoint him as king, and then bring him back and announce it. And that's how they would announce a new king. You remember when Jesus comes into Jerusalem, he's riding on a donkey, and he's riding in, the people are waving palm branches on Palm Sunday and announcing him as the king of the world. That's how they did kings. So we would have had Solomon riding back into Jerusalem on the king's mule, having just been anointed by the high priest, and Benaiah, the other general, was there as well. So so they name it, and people get so excited. This is a huge event. And so just like on Palm Sunday with Jesus, they're celebrating and they're waving palm branches, probably that was the custom, and cheering. And they're so loud that Adonijah, having his feast with Abiathar and Joab, hear it. And when they hear it, and they go, what's going on there? Someone says, oh, David's just made Solomon king. Well, now they're afraid, because they know that they've been traitors. And so they flee, and everybody flees, and their plot is over, and Solomon becomes king. So then, now that Solomon has been made king, David brings him in and says, okay, Solomon, here's some things. And he tells him some people to be careful of. He warns him of the general Joab. Now, Joab has served David for all these years, but he's made some big mistakes. He was part of the plot for Absalom. The previous time someone tried to overthrow David, he was involved in that. He disobeyed David a couple times when David said don't kill somebody, and he did it anyways. And so he was involved in the Bathsheba and Uriah sin as well. And so there's just been some things where he says you got to watch out. And then obviously now trying to again overthrow David and be on Adonijah's side. And so I think Joab just seems to go where he thinks he's quite the politician, goes where he thinks he'll win, and still be able to have power. And then he warns him of Abiathar the priest and another man, Shimei, who had cursed David, had been loyal to Saul and had cursed David in the past. And so he warns them of these people, and then also condemns or promotes a few. Tells Solomon to take care and be kind to other ones who had served him well. And so Solomon starts his reign, and again, Adonijah finds an opportunity to try and take Solomon's throne now. And so Adonijah goes and tries to get one of David's concubines, which would have symbolized that he's taking something from David, taking the throne. And so Solomon hears about it through Bathsheba again, finds out about it, and says and punishes Adonijah by death for trying to take the throne, and again in a plot. Then he strips Abiathar the priest of his priestliness, sends him away to the priestly city to retire, and establishes Zadok as the high priest. And actually that fulfilled a bit of prophecy back when Eli had his sons had been so evil, and God said that Eli's line of priests would end. This is the last. Abiathar was in the line of Eli, and then he's the last one, and so that's now been fulfilled. And then King Joab, when he saw that Adonijah had been killed, he knew that he was probably next, and so he went and clung to the horns of the altar. That was something to do, but and Solomon said to come out. He said, "No, if you're going to kill me, just come kill me here." And so Solomon said, "Okay," and he went. And then lastly, we have Shimei, who had cursed David, had been loyal to Saul, and Solomon basically put him under house arrest in Jerusalem and said, "I'll let you live here, but if you leave, this is their deal, if you leave, then you'll be killed." And so he was good for a few years, and then 1 year, a couple years in, he tried to sneak out and got caught and was punished by death. And so with that, Solomon established his reign. He was now king. David had passed away, and Solomon's reign began. And so that gets us up, and David and Graham will take us in the next few weeks as we get into Kings and start to see Solomon's reign. But I just want to read these couple verses. These are the instructions that David gave Solomon, and we'll look at these and look to apply them to ourselves. When David's time to die drew near, he commanded Solomon his son, saying, "I am about to go the way of all the earth," to die. "Be strong and show yourself a man." That sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds very similar to what Joshua was told. Be strong and courageous by both Moses and God. Told Joshua to be strong and courageous. "Be strong and show yourself a man. Keep the charge of the Lord, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, and his testimonies, as is written in the law of Moses." So commands him to keep the way of God. And they had the law of Moses was their scripture at the time. Those first 5 books of the Bible that we've done the devotions through, that's what they had as the scriptures. By the time Jesus comes, they'll have the whole Old Testament. And then obviously now we've added the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus to have what we have as our scriptures. And then it says to keep those things, to keep the rules and the commandments. That's obvious what those are. As well as his statutes. That's the ways. It's more than just a rule, a do or a don't. It's about how you go about it. That's something for us to keep in mind. That's what probably the Pharisees, one of their wrongs was forgetting that part, being really strict on the rules and not loving the people. That you may prosper in all that you do wherever you turn, that the Lord may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, "If your sons pay close attention to their way and walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel." And so for us, can we have this promise that that God gave to David, that his sons would reign. There would always be a son of his on the throne, which was fulfilled in Jesus, because Jesus was in the line of David and he's the king forevermore for all eternity. But for us, does this idea of us of being obedient and then prospering and walking in God's ways, does that apply to us? Well, I thought the verse that came to mind was in Ephesians chapter 2, and so I'll just read this and we'll end with this. And you probably are familiar with it. For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not of your own doing, it is a gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand, so that we should walk in them. It's just that idea that our salvation is a gift from God. You know, we don't earn it, we don't get it by doing all the right things, but when we have it, we were created to be in relationship with God, to follow him and to serve him and fulfill his will for our lives that he has planned out from beforehand for all eternity past. And so we obey God not to earn our salvation, but because it's the best way to live. And so be encouraged by that today. May God bless you and keep you. And today would you know his peace as you go and do his will. God bless.